I'm Chris Ball, Executive Director of Mashpee TV. With me today is Michaela Wyman-Colombo, one of our newly re-elected members to our Select Board. Also with us is Meredith Harris, Vice Chairman of the Sewer Commission. Ladies, thank you for coming in today. We're going to come in and share some information that we've gathered regarding the residential homeowners, how they go about hooking up to our new sewer system. I've posed a bunch of questions to both ladies. Michaela has gone out, made up some slides, done a lot of hard work, taken her resources, and we're pretty much going to let her run with this today and share with us the information that she's gotten so that those of us who are hooking up in phase one are more informed than we were before we came here today. So Michaela, once again, congratulations on your re-election. And why don't you start us out with how you came up with your information and where we're going to go with it.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Chris. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I think it's really going to be helpful to Mashpee residents. I know when I do office hours, most frequently asked questions from me is about the sewer and about how people get hooked up to the sewer and how they're going to pay for it. I'm not a technical person with this, so I'm not going to talk about the sewer itself, but just try to give citizens some information about how they're going to pay for this in the process. So basically, the sewer is coming, and now what? I think one thing that's often overlooked is there are clear benefits to residents who are being sewered. First of all, there's a benefit to all of us. We have improved water quality. And I'm talking about our embayments and any of our fresh water. But also to people who are being sewered, although there's an expense, there's also an increase in their property value. The town of Barnstable estimated that at between 6 and 13%. So if we think about that and you take 10% just to make it easier, your average home, or if your home is worth $400,000, your home after sewering could be worth up to $440,000 or beyond. So there's a clear advantage as well as some inconvenience. It also has been shown sewering increases property marketability. I know right now in Mashpee, houses are selling as soon as they're on the market, but that could change. So having a home that's sewered makes your home more marketable. And as they're sewering, they're repaving the roads, so we have an improvement in road quality.
Can I just jump in a second? Meredith, how did you get involved with the Sewer Commission?
That's a very good question. The reason I got involved with the Sewer Commission is that I live on Mashpee Wakeby Pond. I've lived there for pretty much all my life, over 50 years, conservative numbers.
I was going to say, you're only 51.
Yes, but the point is that Mashpee Wakeby Pond was closed 2 years ago for 2 weeks because of cyanobacteria. I've never experienced the lake being closed. And so this was the first red light for me to say, there's something seriously wrong with our water quality. Before that, as an avid swimmer, I found it very comfortable to see a body of water and say, wow, this would be great for swimming. Let me just jump in and go for a swim. I can't do that anymore. I don't do it anymore. So I became active through with the Save Mashpee Wakeby Pond Alliance. We created a group to say, let's bring attention to water quality. Let's try to see what we can do. And so I've become a major activist and hadn't even thought about it because it's like, what can I do? Well, I can be active in town government. I can be a spokesperson when I come to the town meetings. I can be attending many of the meetings that have something to do with water quality, and that's almost every single commission or board or department that has to do with the town of Mashpee. All of us are concerned about water quality. It hit me hard because my beloved lake, the water quality that all of us enjoy, from the ocean at South Cape Beach to the lakes at John's Pond to Mashpee Wakeby Pond, we're in trouble. And I want to be able to keep swimming. So it was a very selfish reason why I wanted to say, let's do something. So the first thing that we did that was quite exciting was Save Mashpee Wakeby Pond three years ago now, was to have a swim that went from the bottom of Mashpee Pond to the top of Wakeby Pond. That brought attention to the lake, but then it's not just saying there's something wrong. It's still swimmable, it's still beautiful, it's still lovely, but in the future, it may not be. So I wanted to be involved in town government. I was asked if I wanted to be a part of the sewer commission, and I said, no. And then I said, well, we need to do something. And if this means being a member of the sewer commission, if it means attending select board meetings and planning board meetings, having a voice in town government, that's what I'm going to do. Because all of the water in Mashpee is at risk, and I want us to be able to do something about it.
Well, we're certainly glad you got involved. Thank you. Michaela, I know that the water quality has been a major point with you. Mm-hmm. Why?
Well, similar to what Meredith was saying, it was, I swim all winter. I swim all winter without a wetsuit. I love being able to put my face in the water. And we had some situations at South Cape Beach last year where the water wasn't clean enough for me to feel comfortable swimming, for me to feel comfortable putting my face in the water. So I sat on the beach for a few days and actually cried, feeling so sad about the water. And then hearing the cyanobacteria, just being so disturbed about the water in Mashpee, the water that sustains us. That's how I decided to get involved. That's when I decided to run for select board last year.
And once again, we're glad that you took that on also. But, you know, I bring this out because I know that you both have personal experiences and personal reasons. So I want, before we really get into that, for people to hear why. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that, you know, we as citizens of Mashpee see the problem and, you know that we have to do something about it. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I thought that we needed to get that out.
Sure.
And I think one of the things that becomes very important, Chris, is that as we become active about doing something about the water, we've learned a lot about it. We've learned what cyanobacteria is. We've learned what the limits are for being able to protect the water and prevent things from getting worse and to try to find ways of making them better. So it's the learning curve that each of us has become involved in, and the role of what else can we do? How can we get people involved?
Well, that learning curve is why we're here today. So
Right.
If you would, please continue.
So we talked about some of the benefits of being sewered. And I think now the question that people come with is, what is this going to cost? And that creates huge anxiety for many people. So I think in thinking...
I'll raise my hand on that.
In thinking about the costs, we're not going to give people exact costs today because it's impossible to do. Every home is different. Every situation is different. But so there are some variables that we need to think about. One is just the distance from the street to where the hookup's going to be in the house. Another is whatever barriers that the contractor might confront, you know, whatever hardscaping, walks, driveways, landscaping, decks, any of those things. Also, changes in elevation would make a difference, and any other variation. So it's impossible to give a clear, accurate price. You can't price the hookup by linear foot. All of these things have to be taken into consideration. Estimate cost ranges, and these come actually from the Town of Mashpee website from 2021. The costs in Falmouth, and it's been said that the Phase 1 houses that are going to be sewered are more similar to the houses in Falmouth than houses in Chatham, which is my other example. In Falmouth, the sewer hookup costs between $4,000 and $6,000. We're also using Chatham prices, and in Chatham, where there's more frontage typically and the lots are larger, prices ranged from just under $3,000 to about $23,000, with a medium cost of $8,438. So that gives, I think, residents some sense of cost without being able to pinpoint exactly what it is.
So some of these things where we hear people say, well, it's going to cost $40,000 for me to hook up to the sewer. That's for 99% of us, that's not going to happen.
For 99% of us, that's not going to happen.
Unless you have something, unless you live a mile from the street and you have unusual circumstances.
Exactly. Right. The price is going to vary. There are many variables that come into figuring what the cost will be. Every home is different. So we actually can't come up with a cost right now. The contractor who comes in to give an estimate will come up with a cost, and we'll talk about contractors a little bit later.
Every house is different, and it's not just the distance of your house to the hookup or to the road. It's also, do they have to go under, let's say, pavers, or do they have to go through a long driveway, or an asphalt driveway versus a stone driveway? There are so many different things to configure and to think about. So cautiously thinking about, there are so many differences, but there is a range, and there is a range that's not $40,000, closer to the $6,000 to $8,000, or $4,000 to $8,000. We don't know. That's the important thing.
Contractors come in, the residents get estimates, they find out what this is going to cost, and then the big question is, how do they pay for the hookup costs? So you can pay out of pocket, you could do an equity loan, any of your typical loans. One of the resources that the County of Barnstable is providing is the Aqua Fund, and I think this is going to be helpful to many, many residents. The Aqua Fund out of Barnstable County offers 20-year loans for the total cost of the project. So covers all work directly related to the hookup. What does that include? It includes designing the system, or installation, abandonment of the septic tank. The Board of Health and Title V require that tank to be abandoned. Also, repairs to the driveway, loaming and seeding for areas that are disturbed, and plumbing.
How about trees that might have to be moved, or structures around your house? Is that included in that?
That is a really good question, and I can't tell you with certainty which would be included and which wouldn't. I think it's important, we're going to, in the description of this when it's online, we're going to give links and a phone number to Barnstable County so that residents who confront those types of problems can get information directly from the county.
Okay, I'm just thinking, say you had a shed and now that line has to run under the shed. Mm-hmm. Or, your line now has to come out, like at my house, I now have to come out a different cellar wall and go under a deck. If I have to, do some renovations to those to make it happen, can I borrow money on it? So mm-hmm. What you're saying is that's a question for Aqua Fund.
It really is. But to get into those specifics, I think goes beyond what I can actually discuss.
Okay, but still, there's a way to get an answer from somebody.
There absolutely is, and in the description for this video, when we put it online, we will put both the email to the Aqua Fund and also a direct line to Aqua Fund. I've found them to be very, very responsive, and I think if residents have questions, that would be a good place to go.
Great.
It would be a better place to go probably once they've brought contractors in and received estimates so they understand exactly what needs to be done.
You also touched on a very important point that some people have said, I'm afraid of a loan. I don't want to do a loan for 20 years. But there is the possibility of either having, building up equity in your home or having equity in your home. Or as one resident had said to me, I need to just do some more work so that I can begin to build up my funds. So personally being able to build up funds, but also being able to seek the loan, all of these things are going to be possible. There'll be many different ways of being able to pay for this.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I think keeping in mind that the value of one's home is increased by this makes it easier to think about having a loan. So Aquafund offers some really outstanding loan rates. These depend on, first of all, what kind of a house you own, the housing type. So Aquafund offers 0%, 2% loans over 20 years to single-family, year-round, owner-occupied residences.
That's important to note. Year-round, owner-occupied.
And single-family residences. They offer 4% loans to primary and secondary residences, condominiums, and apartment buildings. I'm not sure how they've decided to differentiate, but those are the schedules that they've put together. Also, the loan rates will differ depending upon household incomes. So 0% is available to anybody that makes less than 120% of the area median income for Barnstable County. Currently, that's $100,500. For 2% loans, anybody that makes between 120% and 180% of the area median income, which is currently $150,500, is eligible for a 2% loan. And anybody who has an income above that, above the $150,500, can apply for and is eligible for a 4% loan.
So 0, 2, or 4%.
Yes. The other thing that I think is really important for Massachusetts residents, you have to be a resident of Massachusetts to be eligible, but the state of Massachusetts offers a tax credit for up to 40% of the total cost. That credit right now can't exceed $6,000, and the credit is divided currently over 4 years.
And that's on state taxes,
Yes.
not federal.
No, it's state taxes.
Okay.
Governor Healy has put forth a proposal to increase that limit to $12,000. Still 40% of the total cost, but an increase to $12,000. And has also proposed to have the tax credits be spread out over 3 rather than 4 years. But that's still a proposal. It's a huge help. Residents can either take that tax credit and apply it to the loan directly to decrease the total amount of interest, or put it in the bank and pay their loan with it. If we're thinking about the Chatham, we talked about the Chatham median price. That's rounding up is $8,500. So 40% of that is $3,400. That would come back to taxpayers in a credit over a 4-year period. If we look at Falmouth, Falmouth average rate, remember we had a range from 4,000 to 6,000. The average rate is $5,000, so it's $2,000 that would come back in terms of a tax credit. So looking at that, if you're trying to figure, and again, these are very, very rough figures, but it's based on both Chatham and Falmouth. If you look at a 0% loan using the higher price, the $8,500, which is Chatham, it's approximately $35 a month at 0%. At 2%, it's $43 a month, and at 4%, it's more or less $51 a month. That's using the higher rate.
So you're talking about the cost per month
The
to
cost
the homeowner.
per month to the homeowner.
So would top off at about $600 a year,
Right.
about.
At the higher rate,
the highest rate.
at the Chatham rate.
Right.
If we look at the Falmouth rate, which is lower, we're looking at about $5,000, which is the average Falmouth rate as of 2021. At 0%, you're looking just over $20 a month, 2%, $25 a month, and 4% at $30 a month.
So about $360 a year.
Exactly. And again, those are based on 2021 figures that were given for both Chatham and for Falmouth. So they're guesstimates.
But if I think about it, if I say, okay, that was then, this is Mashpee. So even if I said, okay, I could probably figure that $1,000 a year is more than enough than what I need based on what we're hearing today. But in the same regard, I'm going to increase the value of my house by 10%, are we saying? Or 13%?
They estimate 6 to 13%.
All right, so let's just call it 10%. Let me see, that's 40 years at $1,000 if I have a $400,000 home.
Right.
It seems like a good investment to me.
It does when you think about it that way.
Absolutely.
Sorry, that's just the way my mind works sometimes.
But it's helpful to think about it in those terms. yeah.
Yes.
Well, I just think that, you have to think about it in those terms is because it's an investment. And when you think about it like that it's just not money going out of your pocket, it's money that you're investing in your home. Just like if you paint your home, you hardscape it, whatever you might do, it's an investment that you're going to recoup somewhere down the road.
And I think also the marketability of your home, the increase in marketability is really important. As I said, right now, houses are selling as quickly as they come onto the market, but that might not be the case in another 5 or 6 years. So that a house is much more marketable when it's sewered is also important to the resident.
I think the important thing too, that if we look at the consequences, if it's not done, if people don't have the opportunity to hook up to the sewer, or if there's no sewering program, or if there's no clean water plan, the value of the houses will start to go down. So this is a big step in the right direction. And thank you so much for gathering all this information about how people can afford it.
My disclaimer is that
It's not allowed.
our interest rates are calculated using Excel. So I just want to...
Right, we're giving out ballpark figures on everything today.
Exactly.
Nothing here is written in stone. It's all ballpark. We're trying to give everyone the best information we can. And, you've gone out and, gathered a lot of great information, and we're just sharing what we know. So.
Exactly.
And we have to think about, this has been a 20 or 30-year process for Mashpee to begin to get sewers.
Yes.
So this is pretty exciting that it's finally happening. And there is some disgruntlement for people. I don't want to be sewered. I do want to be sewered. But it's going to be a process. It's going to take time. But we're trying to address the issues that people might have now.
Yes. So process-wise, we talked about how you can pay for this, the loans that are available. Process-wise, Barnstable County recommends that once that green stake is placed, homeowners begin to reach out to contractors. And I know, Chris, you're going to have a contractor in a future segment come in and explain the process, from start to finish. But basically, we know that once the stake is placed, that's time to get prices. Barnstable County recommends 3 bids. They're not insistent about that. The homeowner can get as many bids as they would like, but they really recommend that 3 bids come in. The town of Mashpee has put together a list of recommended contractors on their webpage, and we'll make that link available in the description as well. It's really important that once those bids come in, those are sent to the Aqua Fund for review. So residents aren't paying a contract up front. Aqua Fund makes the payment to the contractor, similar to any loan you would get from any loan that you would get to pay for something, the payment goes directly to the contractor.
So let's make sure I'm understanding this right. So I am giving, if I'm going through Aquafund, I'm not giving the contractor a deposit or any money up front.
No.
Once Aquafund is taking this over and dealing with it, they're paying the contractors direct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Aquafund pays the contractor. So once the bids go to Aquafund for review, Aquafund prepares a betterment agreement, the loan agreement, for the homeowner to sign. And once signed, that goes to a notary. Aquafund is able to pay the contractors, once the loan's secure, for any septic system related work.
So have no out-of-pocket expense at this point, except for paying my loan.
If you're going through Aquafund.
If I'm going through
That's
Aquafund.
true. The application is completed online. And again, we'll have a link in the description taking the reader right to that application if they're interested in going through that process, as soon as they're interested in going through the process. An application will include a signed and dated copy of the 1040 federal tax return. Most recent mortgage statement is required at a minimum if you have a mortgage statement. If the resident doesn't file federal tax returns, then some evidence of sources of income is required. For example, Social Security, pensions.
Okay, but it's done online.
It is done online. I could only, and I tried to go in so that I could explain exactly what was required, but I wasn't completing an application, so I couldn't get through the first page. It looks like a fairly simple document to complete. And once Aquafund receives all of the information, providing the homeowner qualifies for a loan, the loan can be set within 24 hours.
That's a quick turnaround, for sure.
Yeah. Applications that require additional information, additional review, I mean, will take longer. But it looks like a fairly straightforward process. The town of Mashpee does have funding available. They offer a loan program. They were very, very clear that the loan program that's available through the town of Mashpee should only be an option if a resident, for some reason or another, couldn't qualify for an Aquafund loan. So it's after Aquafund is exhausted. And you'll see why. It's 20 years at 5%, so it wouldn't make sense to have that your first choice, whereas you can get a loan from Aquafund for 4% or less. And if a resident does have to go through the town of Mashpee, payments are included in the tax bill. It's still 20 years, and that too will pay all of the costs from pre-construction within reason to have the project finished.
So that is only as a course of last resort. If you don't get it through Aquafund or anyone else, and it then would be on your tax bill.
Yes.
Am I understanding that?
If a resident isn't able to get an Aquafund loan, they don't qualify for one reason or another, then that would be the time that they could go to the town of Mashpee for a loan.
Okay. I think I got that.
So the applications for that, again, last resort, but the applications for that are come through the Board of Health.
Okay.
So that was a similar process to what happened when town water came in, where people had an option to pay for it right away,
Yes.
or were able to get it incorporated into their tax bill.
Exactly.
Same process.
Okay.
Good.
I understand that too, believe it or not. How about I sell my home? Does that loan go with the sale, or do I pay it as part of my closing cost?
Typically, you would pay it as part of your closing cost, unless the county of Barnstable has given a written notice that you can pass that on to the seller, that the buyer would assume that loan. It has to be paid at closing.
Okay.
And my understanding is that more often than not, it's paid at closing.
Would that hold true for if you went the course of last resort through the town and that was part of your taxes? Would you also be paying that off at the time of closing? Do we know that?
That's an excellent question. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you have for us?
I don't think so. I think we have, I think we've covered basic costs. I think we've covered the way to access Aquafund. One of the things when we were talking just prior to this that you mentioned was us being able to think about a way to support people who don't have a computer or might not be computer literate to be able to complete the application. As I said, the people at Aquafund are very responsive. Certainly the number's going to be available. We could have people call there to find out if they could get a hard copy of the application, or perhaps there's something that could be set up.
Okay, Meredith?
The only thing that struck me is the green stakes. I mean, I've now been able to see them.
Yes.
And one of the things that people need to realize is that when they do see the green stakes, they're not etched in stone. And if they're not in the right place, or if they're in a way, if they could be altered, then they can talk to the contractor and they can move them. So it might make a difference in what it would cost for them to go from the green stake so that was the only thing that struck me. But as far as the information that you've given, I think it was really quite comprehensive, and I thank you.
The thing I think that we need to point out about the green stakes, and correct me if I'm wrong, you as a homeowner just can't go out and move that green stake.
No, you can't pick it up and move it.
That you need to have
pull it out.
a contractor
No, absolutely.
come out and move that stake in a place that you need. And I think, as we've discussed earlier, we plan on this being an ongoing series on different segments of what we're going to do with, as far as hooking up to the sewers as residential homeowners. We're going to have someone in here, as you referred to, Miguel, a contractor, maybe a couple of them, that explains to us the process. You know, we're also going to try to get the Board of Health to come in and say, okay, how do I abandon my tank? What's involved in? What else is involved as far as the Board of Health? Do I pay a fee to the Board of Health to apply for a license, et cetera, or is that inclusive of the contractor's price? I'd also think maybe we could get Ray Jack to take us to the wastewater plant site at one point this summer and show us where we're at on that, and get a tour and see if we can make this ongoing information and update it as we go. That's our plan here.
And I think that that's so important. And again, we thank Mashpee TV for taking the lead in doing this, because even once the sewer is up and running within the next couple of years, there'll be specifics that people need to know about. Well, what can I put down my drains now, or what I can't put down what
Good
can't
point.
I? So there are many pieces of information that, in order to keep people happy and to keep them with the knowledge flowing, and for them to continue to understand that this is a brand new process that Mashpee is undertaking. And it's going to be so important to keep people asking questions and having various forums for them to be able to raise their questions, get the questions answered, and be able to do workshops for them to help them to get those questions answered.
And on that, Meredith, you have on the town website frequently asked questions that you had referred to, and we're going to get that link up there too.
Exactly.
So
That's
that,
from the Sewer Commission.
people can
Yes.
click on that. So I think that about wraps it up for today, unless either one of you have anything in conclusion. But great information. Thank you both for being here. Thanks for the slides. They were great. I mean, I feel much better. I feel much knowledgeable as phase one, what I'm going to have to do and what my options might be. So I thank you both. may ask you back again, if we may, as we get down the road and see where we go.
Of course.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
So that about wraps it up for today. A lot of valuable information shared, and I wish to thank Michaela and Meredith for being with us. For more information on the Aquafund loan program, please visit capecod.gov or call 774-330-3010. We plan to make this a regular series, so be sure to stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.